Into a person I don't wanna be, so oh, it's Saturday night. Yeah. I pray for the wicked on the weekend. Mama, can I get another amen? Oh, it's Saturday night.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to NCAA Football Tonight, Episode 2.
Well, basically this weekend, a lot of the teams faced off against mainly conference opponents, but some still faced off against FCS opponents, and some still struggled, as we'll get to. Kansas. Sorry. We'll get right into that right after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, we recruited that same guy with the Spider-Man mask to pick Tulsa in Oklahoma State.
So we'll go right to him right now.
That is a very interesting pick. For everyone out there, we thought he was an expert, but we're gonna have to disagree with him. Oklahoma State. I think.
I think that's pretty much a no-brainer. I mean, I think Oklahoma State's probably gonna get this game done. I mean, Tulsa, that's just not a valid pick. That's like picking Chattanooga over Tennessee.
Don't get it. We're going to jump right into it. We're going to the ACC. Florida State versus UL Monroe. Florida State, they struggled mightily, but guess what? They got the 1-point victory, 45-44. Now, remember the time where people actually cared about... Oh, wait. No one cares about your season anymore, really. And, if there might be someone that cares about your season. But guess what? Eventually they're going to realize that, you lost to a freshman quarterback on your home turf after the game was moved to your home turf. You lost to a freshman quarterback. No one cares about Florida State anymore. You guys were projected at the top of the ACC. I'm not buying it. I mean, no one gives a shit about your season anymore. No one gives a shit about this whole entire Florida. Florida State owns Florida. Let's get real. The Gators own Florida. All right, I'm not buying any of your bullshit anymore. Time to go into the next game. We had Clemson and Texas A&M. It was a pretty dominating performance on the defensive side of the ball for Clemson. They won 24-10. Trevor Lawrence was 24 of 35 for 268 yards. He had a couple touchdowns. A pretty good game all around. Everyone did their part, The next game, and the last game I'm going to cover in the ACC, is UNC and Miami. Miami held the lead most of the game. They were led by Jaron Williams. He had 30 of 39 incompletions for 309 yards and 2 touchdowns. But guess what? They only scored 25 points, and you know what? Second straight week in a row as underdogs. Mac Brown and the UNC Tar Heels, they won as underdogs at home. And now they're 2-0, and they arguably should be ranked. They're going in to face Wake Forest. They were led by Sam Howell. He was 14 of 24 with 2 touchdowns and 274 yards. Like I said, second straight win as an underdog. Very, very strong start for UNC. Already ties the same amount of wins as they did last week.
Now we make the jump to the Big Ten, where we had a couple of nail-biters. Well, actually, one really good nail-biter. We jump into the Maryland Terrapins taking on the Syracuse Orangemen. And the Terrapins dethrone the Orangemen 63-20 behind Josh Jackson. He was 21 of 38 with 3 touchdowns. And on the ground, it was McFarland and Leak. 182 yards combined with 4 touchdowns combined between the two of them. As, once again, the Terps get it done 63-20. And Josh Jackson's making a strong case for the Heisman Trophy. Now we jump to the most exciting matchup of this game in the Big Ten. It was the Michigan Wolverines against the Army Black Knights. And 2 years in a row, the Army Black Knights, they never disappoint me as far as who they can probably beat. I mean, they played Oklahoma hard last year. I mean, look at that game. It took them to OT. Similar situation this year. They took the Michigan Wolverines to overtime. They had a chance in regulation, but the freshman kicker, Cole Talley, he missed a game-winning 50-yard field goal. And honestly, I'm very, very disappointed in this Michigan team because they just showed me that they are overrated, they're overhyped as always, and they're just going to be like last year. Shea Patterson was sacked 4 times, and it was Zach Charbonnet on the ground who got it done for them because he had 100 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the Wolverines escaped 24-21.
Alabama won 62-10, but did they really win? They were favored by 54, and they won by 52. You know what that means? New Mexico State, they're the true winner. Also, just kidding, Alabama, 62-10, you know. But now it's time to move on to the battle of the irrelevant. The only SEC two teams to play each other, Ole Miss and Arkansas. Ole Miss just had a lot of violations by Shea Patterson, you know. He went over to Michigan to get ass fucked by Ohio State. So they're in a load of shit, Ole Miss. They just lost to Memphis last week. And you have Brett Bielema, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you have Arkansas. They're not doing so hot. I actually think he might be on the hot seat pretty soon.
He's actually in New England right now. They kicked him out a long time ago.
I didn't know that. We covered him last week.
He was a fat turd, and they threw him out of there. They threw him out of there after the whole Bobby Petrino thing.
Oh wow, I did not. Well, yeah. So Scotty Phillips led Ole Miss 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. They won the game 31-17. Now, 2015, the most exciting game, arguably, of the year. 53-52. The extreme lateral on 4th down for Ole Miss got it down, or was it Arkansas? Either way, great game, 53-52. And now we have two of the worst teams in the SEC going at it. Ole Miss won. I just have to cover it because it was the only conference game there. BYU. I posted earlier this week, Tennessee. They never fail to impress me. Oh, man, 29-26. They lost to those Mormons on their home turf again in Neyland Stadium. I just can't take it anymore. Are you guys going to step up? I mean, remember the time you said you guys beat Florida? You said, this is just one victory. There's many more to come. Well, I don't think so. I mean, hey, I'm going to pick you guys over Chattanooga, but you never know anymore. I mean, you guys lost to Georgia State on your home turf. Anyways, last week we said we said Texas and LSU was going to be a high-scoring affair. It was going to be a shootout. We were right. Ellinger, he threw for 401 yards for 4 touchdowns. The Duvernay had a good game. However, LSU's offense was better than Texas's offense slightly. It was offense, and offense, and not even a hint of defense. Burrow threw for 471 yards and 4 touchdowns, and Justin Jefferson had 163 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns in a 45-38 victory. And this will go as a huge win for LSU to make their playoff push. And maybe they could go undefeated going into the game versus Alabama. I mean, I guess we'll see.
And now we move on to the sole game that was covered this week in the Big 12 because it was the one game that mattered. Because all the rest of the games were pretty much blowouts. But here, we're going to talk about week 2 of the Les Miles era in Lawrence, Kansas. Where it was for sure a Kansas victory, right? You're wrong. Coastal Carolina, not picked by one single member of the board that we have on our little pick'ems. Not one person picked the Chanticleers to win, but guess what happened? They defeated the Jayhawks 12-7, and that was behind C.J. Marable from the Chanticleers. He had 24 carries, 148 yards, and a touchdown.
Give me that blue field.
And then you look back at Kansas. Carter Stanley, he threw 2 interceptions, 107 yards throwing, but no touchdowns to show for it. So what that's telling me right now is that Kansas, it's going to be a long season. Because next week, whenever you face Neil Brown's team, it's going to be bad. Because if you're losing to a team that is transitioning to the FBS, more or less like a Liberty, a Georgia Southern, a Georgia State, you got a problem. And Les Miles, you got your work cut out for you this year. Prove me wrong.
It's now time to transition into the American Athletic. Well, Houston. Dana Holgerson finally led Houston to his first ever win for the Cougars. We're now going to transition into SMU, who looked very dominant in their performance. They defeated North Texas with Mason Feinbach 49-27, and Shane Buechele looked great. 21 of 31, 292 yards and 3 touchdown passes. Xavier Jones and James Prochet, both Prochet for sure will go into the NFL after this year, no doubt. They all looked good, the whole team. SMU is going to have a pretty solid season this year. I mean, they're scoring a lot of points and at ease. It's now time to move into UCF. They took on Florida Atlantic. No Wimbush, and there was also no Daryl Mack. Yeah,
Yep.
No Daryl Mack or Brandon Wimbush. And freshman quarterback, I forgot what his first, Dylan. He had 245 yards. And here's the funny stat. They won 48-14. They had 5 rushing touchdowns with 5 different players. So each rushing touchdown was by a different player. How about that, right? That's it for the American Athletic. There was a lot of boring games this week. I mean, there wasn't really a lot going on. The only teams that you really want to cover are UCF. I mean, SMU's look good. I guess we could say Cincinnati lost to Ohio State pretty good. It was kind of similar to the beating Ohio State at Michigan, except this time Cincinnati didn't score any points. I mean, at least Michigan scored some points, I guess, last season, but it was pretty bad, 42-0. Cincinnati, they should be able to bounce back. They have a pretty solid team for their conference.
So now we move into probably one of the more underrated sections of this week, and that's the Pac-12. Now, while most of you were catching some Z's or sleeping, these games were very interesting, and they were ranked matchups. 3 ranked teams lost to this week in the Pac-12. I mean, we start off with USC and Stanford. Stanford, obviously, this is their first week without KJ Costello, and they struggled mightily. So USC defeated Stanford ultimately 45-20. That was behind the backup for JT Daniels, Keaton Slovis, and I say backup, but he played way better than a backup.
What we're saying is he was feeling dangerous.
He was feeling himself for sure. He was 28 of 33 with 377 yards and 3 touchdowns. He completely decimated the Stanford secondary. And on the ground, it was Tyler Vaughns and Amon Ross St. Brown. They had combined 203 yards and 3 touchdowns. I'm sorry, that was in the air. I'm sorry. But now we move to Colorado and Nebraska. In another game that I picked wrong. And I really needed this game, and they did not pull through for me.
Well, actually, you picked it right on the poll. No, you picked it wrong on the poll, but you picked it right here, technically.
Right, but I mean...
So we could have parity.
That's just breaking the fourth wall, honestly. But let's go to, honestly, Nebraska. Adrian Martinez had a very, very good showing. 16-26 and 290 yards and 2 touchdowns. Should not be taken lightly. Unfortunately, it was Colorado's Steven Montez. 28-41, 375 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Buffs get it done. 34-31.
You know he rolled a fat one after that game.
Oh, yeah, they were all high.
Because all their eyes were bloodshot.
Honestly. And now we move into, honestly, one of the biggest upsets of the week is California. The Golden Bears defeated number 14 ranked Washington 20-19. That was behind Chase Garbers, 11 of 18. He was 11 of 18 for 111 yards. But it was Marcel Dancy who got it done. 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the California Golden Bears, once again, upset a top 25 team. 20-19. All right. Now to our fabled segment. We have the pick'ems of the week. Much more or less like the headgear picks that we see on College Game Day every Saturday morning, where Lee Corso, that old man, puts on a mascot helmet.
No, well, not so fast.
You know what? It is so fast, because we're going to start out here with the ACC. North Carolina is going to face off against Wake Forest. Now, opening up the game, Wake Forest is a 3-point underdog, and that's only because 3-point favorite, and that's only because
they're home.
North Carolina. They're at home, and North Carolina has not won a road game since defeating the University of Pittsburgh in 2017. So, if that's the case, I still got to go with Mac Brown and UNC because they're probably going to sneak into the top 25 this week. They've got a pretty solid team. Mac Brown's got a very solid coaching plan going into this, and Wake Forest is not that impressive. I think the game is going to be too close. I think North Carolina gets the W.
So this is where we differ. Wake Forest, they're okay at home. I mean, it doesn't get too loud there. Let's get real. Wake Forest, their stadium's kind of a dump.
I mean, Winston-Salem is a dump.
However, Jamie Newman is the X factor. He's been one of the best passers in the first 2 weeks of college football, and I believe that it's only going to get better from here. I believe that at home, he's going to find Surratt. Cade Carney's going to do it if he's playing. I might change my pick to UNC if Cade Carney is not playing. But I think Cade Carney, if he's playing, they're going to run through their line. Surratt's going to be found. I think it's going to be narrow victory because Sam Howell has looked impressive, but I think I'm going to take Wake Forest at home on this one.
So now we're going to move into the second game of the ACC that we're going to cover this week, and that's the Florida State Seminoles facing off against the Virginia Cavaliers.
I was about to cut you off because I really wanted to say it immediately. I'm picking Virginia right now. Virginia, they looked really good against Pitt. They looked really good last week. I know it was against the tribe of William and Mary, but Virginia looks like the real deal this year with Bryce Perkins. Last season, when they got into the top 25 for the first time in quite some time, they may have had Heath Miller and Matt Schaub last time they made it to the top 25. However, they looked really good. But last year, their top 25 was cut short when they lost to Pitt. However, this year, that's not going to happen again. They're going to beat Florida State at home, and Bryce Perkins, he's going to torch them. Think about it. Freshman quarterbacks can torch them. If the Warhawks of UL Monroe, they're the Warhawks, right?
Yep.
If the Warhawks of UL Monroe can torch them, give me Virginia.
All right, good pick there because I'm going to go with Virginia as well. I think Bryce Perkins is extremely agile and extremely versatile at the quarterback position. I think that he's going to absolutely run all over them and torch them through the air. I really think that this could probably be a 20-point blowout if I'm being honest here. I mean, Florida State struggled against the UL Monroe Warhawks. They lost to Boise State at home when it was moved to their home. That automatically gives them advantage. I mean, Doak Campbell Stadium gets loud. So you know what? Yeah, Virginia Cavaliers, I think I'm saying it's a blowout. And I hate blowouts.
All right, time to transition into the next one. TCU at Purdue. And on our pick-em poll, we really don't have a lot of TCU picks, but I was one of those TCU picks, and here's why. TCU, they really haven't had much to tell. I think they played Arkansas, Pine Bluff, or was that Baylor? I don't know. They played some crap team last week, too, and they won pretty soundly. Purdue, they're missing Sindelar. That's gonna hurt. They may have beat Vanderbilt last week, but without their starting quarterback, it's going to be a rough go-around. I'm going to have TCU on the road on this one by a narrow margin. I'd say 7 to 10 points. I think TCU gets the win.
And honestly, you were talking earlier about the fact that in the pick'em poll, not a lot of people picked TCU, and I think there was 3. Well, we were 2 of those 3 because I picked TCU as well, and here's why. I think Purdue, other than Rondale Moore, they don't really have a solid offense. And then you look at Jalen Reagor from TCU. He's solid through the air. He is probably one of the top wide receivers in the upcoming draft if he is eligible. So honestly, I think TCU's offense is very powerful. I'm always a believer in the Big 12, so I'm going to stick with the Big 12 here. TCU, they're going to win by 7 points.
This moves on to the battle of names. It's Iowa and Iowa State, and I'm going to go with Iowa on this one. They have beaten Iowa State 4 straight times. Now, I know sometimes it really doesn't matter. Well, guess what? It does. Think about this. Peyton Manning lost every single time he played against Florida. If your personnel loses to them multiple times, then you're going to have to start to realize that maybe, hey, this other team has their number. And just going off of NCAA football history, I'm going to go with Iowa on this one just because they have their number. They've won 4 straight. Iowa's a good team. They got Nate Stanley back. Yeah, give me Iowa.
I agree. I looked at the stats, and in Ames, where they're playing this game at Jack Trice Stadium, they are 1-4. The Cyclones are 1-4 against the Hawkeyes in the Cyhawk for the battle for the Cyhawk Trophy. So honestly, yeah, I don't think that Brock Purdy's going to be able to get it done. I think that Iowa's quarterback Nate Stanley is dominant, and their team is dominant too. So I'm going to go with the Hawkeyes here.
Alrighty, so you may announce the next game.
So now we're moving on to I believe this is
Kansas State.
This is Kansas State against Mississippi State. One of the other games. They're going to the hump. They're going to, I believe they play in Starkville, Mississippi.
Yep, 50 minutes from the airport.
home of the cowbell. Mm-hmm. Honestly, if you drive up to that stadium, yes, that's the first thing you're gonna hear, even if there's nobody in the stands.
Or cows. There's not gonna be a cow. You know what? On second thought, There is going to be a cow around because it's in the middle of nowhere. Starkville, Mississippi. I mean, when you go there, you go into the airport, and it's 50 minutes to an hour. So not only do you have to wait on your flight, you have to drive 50 minutes. And this is why I'm going to pick Mississippi State. Because home field advantage, I really don't think Mississippi State's that great this year. But I don't think Kansas State's that good either. I do think it's going to be a close game, though. I think people are thinking Mississippi State's going to blow them out, which I guess they could. But I think it's going to be a narrow victory for Mississippi State.
Honestly, it's going to be a long long bus ride back to the airport for the Kansas State Wildcats. Mississippi State gets it done. I think they win by a touchdown.
Time to go on to Florida at Kentucky. Kentucky with a heartbreaking, Florida with a heartbreaking loss to Kentucky last season. No more Benny Snell. They have some players back, but they lost, what's his face? Allen.
Yep, it was Josh Allen.
Josh Allen. Yeah, they lost Josh Allen. I'm going to go with Felipe Franks and the Florida. I mean, they have their number in history, so yeah.
Honestly, yeah, just basing off that reaction, I think you got to think that I'm picking the Gators. Right? Yeah, right. It is right because I'm picking the Florida Gators. I think Felipe Franks has been pretty dominant and solid so far. I think the Florida's snuck into the top 10 this past week. I think Florida gets it done on the road at Kentucky.
It's safe to say I think they're Florida's team this year. I think it goes Florida, then Florida A&M in a close second.
This is not a Will McElwain type Florida team. This is a Dan Mullen type Florida team.
Speaking of McElwain, he is one ugly motherfucker.
He's a piece of shit too. I mean, did you ever hear about some of the things that he did in the locker room about the scholarships? He pulled Jack Del Rio's son. He pulled his scholarship without telling him. And what a piece of shit. And he played.
And he let Will Greer walk too.
Yep.
He let Will Greer walk just because he would be ashamed if someone he didn't recruit won. But now I guess who's their coach now?
Dan Mullen.
Dan Mullen.
And he's a far better coach. And once again, the Gators are going to get it done. And then on to the next game. We got the Washington State Cougars facing off against the Houston Cougars
in NRG Stadium.
Honestly, because it's the battle of the Cougars. Are there going to be some Cougars there? I mean, some older ones, maybe some 40-year-olds, some 50-year-olds.
Maybe Daniel Holgerson can fuck a 70-year-old after the game.
What about Douglas Reed?
Honestly, I have no clue. But honestly, Dana Holgerson.
You should make a Meat Holes video with an 85-year-old.
You don't want to talk about Meat Holes.
Dana Scotch is going to get him in trouble. It's no longer DUI University. No, DUI Central is no longer Morgantown, West Virginia. It's Houston, Texas, folks. I mean, Dana Holgerson has brought that program and has brought that city into a point of alcoholism. So now you're asking me to pick a game between the Houston Cougars and the Washington State Cougars? Get the fuck out of here. I'm picking Washington State. I don't like De'Aaron King. I don't like Dana Holgerson. I think fuck Houston. Let's go with Washington State.
You know what? Way to put that. That was very nicely done right there. I'm going to go with Wazoo just because Drew Bledsoe told me to. Next, we're going to go to Texas State at SMU. Same exact reason why I picked them last week. Shane Buechele. Prochet is an NFL prospect. We're going to go with SMU just like that.
I agree. Shane Buechele has been solid. He's obviously an NFL talent. I mean, he transferred from Texas. And he stayed in the state of Texas. So go Mustangs once again.
We'll do then OU at we'll do that one first. OU at UCLA. OU.
Yeah, straight up Oklahoma. I think Jalen Hurts and
no explanation.
For me. I mean, Jalen Hurts is solid. Their team is solid. CeeDee Lamb is solid. Oklahoma as a whole is just not going to be able to be beaten by a team like UCLA. Mm-hmm. So especially knowing UCLA lost to an American athletic team
and
like Cincinnati, who just was destroyed by Ohio State. But yeah, straight up OU.
All right, so now it's time to go on to Texas Tech at Arizona. I do think Texas Tech gets it done. Quarterback for Texas Tech. What's his name?
You know what?
It's an M, right?
It begins with an M. You know what? I'll figure it out later.
I was looking at his numbers earlier today. I really don't pay attention to Texas Tech or Arizona a lot. No, Arizona has Khalil Tate, but Texas Tech, I believe they're going to score more points than Arizona. It's going to be a barn burner. The thing with Arizona, they gave up too many points to Hawaii for me to pick them, so I'm going with this.
This is where we're going to be a little different. I think that Arizona wins just based on the fact of sheer luck. I think that whoever has the ball last is going to win this football game. I mean, Khalil Tate is a very solid quarterback, and he has a lot of weapons at wide receiver. But honestly, this is going to be a shootout. I mean, you looked at Arizona. This is a team that gave up 41 points to Northern Arizona, a team in the Big Sky Conference in the FCS. So I think just based on that, I think the Arizona offense is solid. But, I mean, there's going to be no defense. So go Arizona. Bear down.
Hopefully it's a 70 to 67 point game. That would be pretty awesome. I don't see it being that high, but that would be pretty cool. Speaking of having the ball last and stuff, why not do Ball State? Florida Atlantic at Ball State. But I'm gonna go with Florida Atlantic just because 2 years ago they were a good underdog story. Lane Kiffin brought them back. Last year they shit the bed. They took they did more than just shit the bed. I mean, they just shit everywhere they could. They laid an egg everywhere. Seriously, but this year, I do think they bounce back. I do think they'll have a 7-5, 8-4, 9-win season. I think this is their year. I think they're going to go on the road. Ball State looked good against Indiana. I will say this, but I'm going to go with Florida Atlantic on this one. I think Lane Kiffin and his squad gets it done.
I agree. I think that Florida Atlantic, being coached by Lane Kiffin, I mean, I can't recall if they're in the Sun Belt or the Conference USA. You can educate me on that one, right?
Conference USA.
There we go. I think honestly,
Florida Atlantic's in the Conference USA.
Florida Atlantic. I mean, if they can string together a 9-win season, it's possible that they could make a run for the Conference USA championship. But they got to go through Ball State, and I think that they're going to get through Ball State because Ball State's a MAC team. I mean, MAC teams, they play on Thursdays and Wednesday nights.
And wait until December and November. They'll start playing on Tuesdays.
I can't wait until MACtion.
MACtion, baby. Southern Mississippi at Troy. You may pick first.
I'm going to go with Troy. I think Troy has had a solid team since, even though that they lost their head coach. I mean, I think Troy has been very, very sound. They run a pro-style offense when they had Neil Brown, so I believe they kept that kind of style going. They opened up as 2.5-point underdogs, unfortunately. So this has been a really hard game to pick. It's just a pick 'em, basically. So I'm just going to go with the Troy Trojans based off the fact that they're playing at home. So
I actually went with the upside. I went with Southern Mississippi, and the reason why is 16 returning starters. Troy looks good, but they lost their coach. They didn't lose a lot of players, but 16 returning starters are projected at the top of Conference USA. I'm going to go with Southern Mississippi on that one. That moves on to Hawaii and Washington.
Hawaii, they've got a very, very solid offense. They are led by quarterback Cole McDonald.
He's been looking like Colt Brennan.
And if you remember Colt Brennan, he was just putting up stats after stats and just so many touchdowns. So in this case, I got to go with the Rainbow Warriors picking the upset because Washington, they're coming off a loss against Cal. A really, really bad loss. Really, really bad offensive play from the Washington Huskies. I think Hawaii is going to capitalize off of those sort of bad feelings that they've gotten in Seattle. So they're sleepless in Seattle, and they're going to be even more sleepless because the Rainbow Warriors are going to win.
The loss of Browning just showed last week that Washington doesn't have that college. They don't have that New Year's Six Bowl feel anymore. So with that being said, I'm still going to go with Washington. Just because I do believe they'll bounce back this week against Hawaii. Hawaii did struggle against Oregon State, so therefore I'm going to go with Washington on this one. And this leads to our second to last one, which is Georgia State at Western Michigan. I'm going to go with Western Michigan at home, just because they're home. Georgia State, yes, they did beat Tennessee, but I'm picking the home team on this one, playing it safe.
Not so fast!
Okay,
So basically, I'm going to go with Georgia State here. I think the Panthers are riding a 2-0 start, and this is probably their best start in school history, if I'm being honest, in the FBS era at Georgia State.
I agree.
They They opened up the week against a very, very gut-wrenching loss for the Volunteers, and they beat the Volunteers. But then the next week they struggled against Furman, and the Paladins could not get it done. But the Panthers got it done, and they're 2-0 now. I think they're going to ride that into Kalamazoo, and they're going to beat the Broncos. I think it's going to be very close now.
Now it's time for the pick of the day.
All right, here we go. It's BYU and USC. We got the Mormons from BYU taking on the Trojans of USC. Straight off the bat, we have Keaton Slovis, who's playing the backup role of JT Daniels. And pretty big shoes to fill, and he had a very large game last week, 377 yards, 3 touchdowns, and USC got the job done at Stanford. However, I know that BYU is going to come out firing after their comeback win against Tennessee last week in Neyland Stadium, and their overtime victory. And that's a very, very big momentum shift for the Cougars. I think that Zach Wilson, a quarterback, is going to lead the charge, and the Cougars are going to get it done. So I think the Cougars are probably going to win by around 4 or 7 points.
Speaking of BYU, the mascot, that mascot can dance, man.
Cosmo can dance.
Can dance. Look up his videos when he gets a chance. But before you go out I saw in commercials, before you go out into the sea, make sure you wear your life jackets. Here we go. I'm going with USC, and yes, I got the helmet out just for this game. Their quarterback last week, he really sparked. He really looked good. They beat Stanford, a ranked Stanford, who usually has a pretty solid defense. They won 45-20. And BYU, yes, they beat Tennessee. Yes, they looked very good. Yes, Zach Wilson looked good. Yes, I do like BYU. And I'm not going to pick against them every single week. But this week, I'm confident that USC is going to win this time. And so, yeah, there it is. USC is winning the game. I know they don't have Matt Leinart or Mark Sanchez anymore, but they're still going to win. That quarterback looked very good.
Put it on!
It's not fitting. You want to try it? That is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching.
Make sure you like, subscribe, and go watch some college football.
Yeah, NCAA football tonight.